Hi everyone, I'm Suma and here's Tim Cliss. He's a non-duality writer and speaker based in UK. Hi Tim.
Hi Suma.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
I think this may be a good time to ask this question, what is this and what's happening? How would you describe it from a non-dual perspective?
That's a big question. Did you say, what is this? This is everything. This is all there is. There isn't anything more. There's nothing less. There's nothing before or after this. And this itself is nothing too.
Would you say that even with...
It's always, this doesn't change. So appearances change. Things appear to change. Things seem to change. Everything that happens seems to be a new happening. And things that happen seem to appear and then disappear. But that's just how it seems. This, which is the... There isn't a good word for, so in non-duality, there's various words that speakers and writers have, that they do use and they've tried to use to express this inexpressible happening that doesn't happen. The all that isn't, everything and nothing. It's not expressible, of course, because it's totally paradoxical, because it's both everything and nothing. Because and it is and it isn't. So you can't, there isn't a word for this, but I use the word this because I can't find a better one. But there isn't a this. There's lots of other words people have used. Oneness, beingness, wholeness, completeness, emptiness, nothingness. The absolute being the relative, emptiness being form, form being formless. So it's a futile attempt to try and express what's happening. There's no knowing what's happening. The problem with expressing it, of course, is that it sounds as though the human being who's speaking the words knows what they're speaking about, knows what they're saying. And I know most people who hear this won't believe it, most human beings won't believe it, but the words that come out of here aren't known. And for some reason, this feels able to say also that the words that you think you know when you speak them, they're also not known. The same with everyone else. Words just appear in the same way as clouds appear in the sky. There's no reason for them. They're not known. They just appear. They don't mean anything. So the great irony is, I'm speaking about this as if it's important, but these words have no relevance at all. They don't mean anything. But that's the great liberation, the great freedom is that no one knows more about this than anyone else, because it's completely unknowable. That was a lot, wasn't it, in one go?
Do you think, especially in this moment when so much is going on, it's not easy to make it unknown,
Well, with this global... First, I think it's It's not important. I was going to say it's important. It's not important. But this isn't any different. This is never any different. It's always different, but it's always the same as well. So what's happening, or what seems to be happening in the world, is just this. And really, the only thing I would say is what seems to be obvious is how the present climate of fear just emphasizes how the individual self, the me, will do anything to protect itself and to try and stay in control. And what we're seeing in the world is a collective sense of me being terrified. And what me is most terrified of is death. And all that me is getting at the moment is, so what most individuals do going through everyday normal life, is avoid talking about death. And at the moment, what we're seeing is constant bombardment of death is imminent. Danger of death is imminent. Now, in a way, that all that is a reality, you could say it's a reality check, because of course death is always imminent. But the sense of self is so afraid of death, me is so afraid of death, that it will avoid the obviousness of my own mortality. And at the moment, you turn on the TV, or you meet someone, and it's just constant. You can't avoid. So death at the moment is unavoidable, and so that's creating a lot of terror and panic. That's how I see it.
Do you think this fear of death, it's like our basic programming for the me?
I don't think it's basic program, because basic programming is what you're born with. So you could say it's some developmental program, because it seems to develop around the age of 2 years, that a sense of self, like an embryonic sense of self, is formed, and then from that it's added to, and until you get a fully formed sense of self. But that sense of self, which is the initial sense of separation from mother, so if you see a baby who's breastfeeding, then it's obvious that baby, it's really very obvious that there's no separation between the child and the mother for that baby. The mother and the baby are symbiotic, they're one and the same. There's no separation. And that separation from the mother happens around 18 months, 2 years. Most psychologists would agree with that's when I have a sense of I am. And it's when children just learn language, and the word they learn usually very soon is me. And everything is about me. If you've met a two-year-old and a 3-year-old, when self is developing, it's all about me. There's nothing more self-centered than a 3-year-old human being. Because they're developed, it's like the growth of that sense of separation, of identity. So do I think that's natural? Yeah, I do. It seems to happen with every human being. And of course it's beneficial, because a self-centered human being will put itself first. That's what it does, protects itself. So of course it's in an evolutionary way, it's a beneficial thing. But it comes as a curse as well. Not for all human beings, but the majority are cursed by themselves and tormented by themselves. Me torments me.
Among non-dual speakers, it's not uncommon to hear ideas like like leave the world alone, everything will take care of itself.
Right.
How do you see that during these times? Do you think everything will take care of itself?
Well, you can tell any story you want. It doesn't matter. They're just stories. So whatever story we tell about what's happening at the moment, whatever we say, not even the story we tell, even if you think you're not telling a story, if you say what you think is happening, that's the story. And human beings are storytelling creatures, and that's what we do. We tell each other stories. We tell ourselves stories. And whatever we say about what's happening now or in the past or what might happen in the future, that's storytelling. And it's all a story. So if I was to tell you the story of what Tim thinks is going on in the world, it would just be another story to add to the other 7 billion stories that are being told at the moment, with no more significance. So I don't feel I have anything to say about what's happening, other than what I've already said, which for me, it seems really obvious that what's happening is just highlighting how terrified I am is of death. And it brings out the worst of the meanness of human beings, as you see in the panic buying, completely ignoring other people's needs and just being very self-centered, terrified at the threat to my existence. That's what it highlights. In terms of looking after the planet, well, they're just fairy tales for me. Nice fairy tales, but... Do you mean that this might have a positive effect, as, you know, the pandemic might be in some way positive for the planet?
No, I was just asking from, it seems like a lot of non-dual speakers hint towards like leaving things as they are, but in the current moment it seems like it may be difficult to do that.
I'd be the last one to give anyone advice about using the earth or leaving the earth as it is, because it's very obvious that each human being doesn't have any say in what they're doing. They're just doing what they're doing. You don't get a choice of whether you leave the earth alone or you use the earth for your own gratification. You're not choosing that. That's the message. The whole message of non-duality is that things are as they are, and that's each human being is as each human being is. So to advise leaving the earth alone just doesn't even appear, because it would be nonsense. Whether I think you should leave the earth alone, you will either leave the earth alone or you will go and do some fracking. Or dig for diamonds, or cut down some trees. But just at a real basic level, if you were hungry, you would kill animals to eat. And if you, I know most vegans would disagree with me, but if you were hungry enough, you would kill animals to eat. And if you were cold, then you would cut down trees. No matter how, you know, to have a fire. It's very easy to be in our privileged Western luxury. And that's what we're also seeing, the threat to that. I was reminded yesterday that 25,000 human beings die each day from starvation. So today, 25,000 people will die of starvation. It's not making the news, is it? And there's a reason it doesn't make the news. We're not starving.
Another idea I usually come across in non-dual, which is very common in non-duality, is to idea like this is all an illusion. This is unreal, this is not real. I want to bring it back again to what's happening right now. Like it's not easy to ignore this as an illusion. Can you comment on that? Like,
Yeah.
can you call this an
Yeah, it's the same as everything else. So you could say, is a virus real? Yeah, a virus is real. Will it, if you catch a virus, will it make you really ill? Yeah. Will it possibly kill you? Yeah, possibly. That's real. But is that really happening? No, none of that is really happening. So is it real? Yes, completely real. The most incredible thing about this message is that everything is absolutely real. And it's equally absolutely unreal. Now that makes no sense at all. No one who hears that can say, oh yeah, I get that. I haven't got that. That doesn't make any sense. But of course, it's the only way of describing. If this is all there is, then of course it's equally real and unreal. It's equally happening and not happening. There isn't anything more or less. So reality is total. This is totally real. But what we're talking about when we're talking about the pandemic is we're into a story. Now that's a real story, but it's just a story. Does that make any sense? So it's not real in the, so that's not real as in real. It's real as in a real story. And you can tell any story. Have you heard how many stories are being told about what's happening? It's just thousands of, you know, you speak to, I mean, there is an overwhelming one, which is the whole of human civilization, human existence is at risk. But I mean, that's just a ridiculous story. None of the scientific evidence backs that up if you look at it at all. So is it real? Yes. Is it real? No. Or is it unreal? Yes. It's yes to unreal and yes to real. And completely both. That's not helpful, is it?
It's a paradox.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you can interpret it in many different ways.
Not really. I don't think I don't think a paradox can't really be interpreted. That's the that's when it's paradox. You can't interpret real and unreal. There's nowhere to go. It's a full stop after that. So what is this? Real? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you said it was unreal? Yeah, it's absolutely unreal. Full stop. Well, you can't go anywhere with that. It's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can debate. You can debate it if you want. But if it becomes obvious that there's nothing else, then the reality and the unreality just becomes obvious. I don't know what more to say about that. I know it makes no sense. It's not rational. But I think that is the beauty of this message is you've tried to work life out. You've tried to understand life. You've tried to know what life is. You've tried to know what's happening. And you failed at every time, no matter how, each time you think you've made a step forward in understanding, it's very obvious that there's more to know, there's more to understand. Whereas when life is obviously unknowable, I mean, the word that a lot of speakers use is mystery. I don't like the word mystery. The reason I don't like it is there's nothing mysterious about this. This is not mysterious, it's obvious. It's smack in your face. You can't ignore it. It's all there is. Mystery sounds like otherworldly, supernatural. I'm talking about the most natural, the only natural that can't be missed. So I understand why mystery is used, because it's not knowable. So it's a mystery, but in no way is it mysterious. Incredibly ordinary. unbelievably ordinary, because there isn't any fantasy about something extraordinary. So no matter what's going on, it's all pervaded by an unbelievable ordinariness. And I should say about the ordinariness, the ordinariness has an okayness about it. That's weird. That is paradoxical as well. That everything's okay, even when it's not okay. So that it looks as though the world's not okay at the moment. That's okay. That it's not okay. Looks like a lot of people are terrified at the moment. That's okay. And so there's a peace with that that is really impossible to describe. And the reason it's okay is not that it's okay, but that it couldn't be any other way. That's the okayness. Why couldn't it be any other way? Because it is like it is. Is this as it is? Yeah, that's it. That's the whole of non-duality. That's it. Is this as it is? Yeah. Oh well, that's it. Could it be any other way? Yeah, I can yeah, if you imagine it another way, yeah. And that's okay as well. I don't know what I'm saying there.
I do understand that non-duality, it doesn't offer like fairy tale stories for these kind of situations.
No.
But can you comment a little bit on, like, there is an unbelievable amount of fear and isolation that's happening right now, and to be able to have okayness with that, how to reconcile those two things. I know non-duality has nothing to offer, but if you can just comment what comes to you.
I'm not sure what you are asking me, really. Are you asking me what this message has to offer? Because I know you said it doesn't have anything.
But you have an okayness with what?
Now, that's not true. No, this is okay. This human being could have okayness or not okayness. So say someone I love caught the virus. So this is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying Tim, this human being, would be okay with that. That is not what I'm saying. So I can't give you advice or anyone else advice about how you can now be okay with everything that's happening. That's not what I mean at all. I mean quite the opposite. I mean, when you are not okay with something, that's okay. It's okay for it not to be okay. And we're in a situation where there are more people than the average number, you would say, who are not okay with what's happening. Well, that's okay. It's as it is, isn't it? Of course, how would you not be afraid of your loved one's dying. There is a myth about that the love was mine, that the love's mine. You know, me says compassion is mine, love is mine, consideration for others is mine, selflessness is mine, all the positives, kindness is mine. You know, I'm kind, I'm that, I'm generous, I'm considerate, that's rubbish. That's a lie that I have told myself. There is just natural compassion. There is natural kindness. There's natural love. All of these positives, as well as the negatives, by the way, have just been claimed by me. And it's just not true. But me will fight to the death to say that they are mine, because it won't give them up. It won't give up any of its qualities. You know, we talked about the embryonic self. Well, as through conditioning, you adopt all kinds of, you know, I'm a generous person, I'm a kind person, or I'm a selfish person, I'm an unkind person, I'm a greedy person. Equally negative, and often there's two conflicting aspects of self, or two selves you could say, who are in conflict, who are always fighting each other. Selfish and the selfless, the kind and the greedy, the generous and the greedy, the kind and the sadistic. And me claims all those, whereas everything is natural. I don't know what I'm saying again there. What was the question?
About the fear.
So the fear...
About, we were talking...
The majority of fear is mine, and fear for myself. So when I'm talking about, say I'm afraid of my loved one dying, that's totally selfish, because I'm afraid of how I will feel if my loved one dies. I'm afraid for my own grief. I'm afraid for my own loss. So although it sounds, that sounds compassionate, it's not really.
I wanted to ask you about some criticism I've heard about non-duality. I hope it's okay to ask a couple of questions.
Okay.
And I hope it won't be too harsh to ask.
Okay, yeah, it's fine.
One of them...
Well, it might not be, but...
One criticism I've heard about is how this message can be damaging for some people, and it can be, it can, maybe for some it creates a sense of freedom and liberation, but for some it has the opposite effect, where they feel really isolated, a sense of loss of identity, and like purposelessness, and they really have to work on trying to get back their life together because of this message. If you can comment on
that. It is really, this isn't a nice message. For the individual person, for me, this is a devastating message. This is a message that's only about loss. And of course, what does me fear most is loss. And the ultimate loss is the loss of myself. And that's the core of this, of what non-duality is saying. That there isn't a you at the center around which life revolves. To me, to most me's, that is horrific. It's terrifying. It's hugely threatening. As you say, for a few it's not. For a few it's, wow. Because some people, it seems, a few human beings have always had a sense of the emptiness. So When this was heard by Tim, this message, it was like New Year's Eve fireworks display on the Thames. Yes! It wasn't that there was something wrong with me. It wasn't that the hole in the middle of Tim was something wrong. It's actually how it is, of course. It was like coming home, as the moment I heard it. Now, I didn't know all that at the time, but there was an intuitive sense of, oh, that, yes. It was just like, yes. Whereas most people hear this, and they're just, it's a no straight away, because it's such a threat. But from childhood, I always had a sense of, there was a hole right through the middle of me, a hole where myself should be. When I was depressed about 20 years ago, I wrote that, and that stayed with me, and that was how it always felt. So when people talked about self, I just intuitively found nothing. So I looked for self. So you know the Ramana thing about who am I? I'd looked for myself. I'd asked myself that question a lot as a child. I didn't need a guru to ask me that. I don't think most people do. Those people who naturally are self-inquiring, and they're the ones who are drawn to this. So I'd looked and found nothing, just a hole. But the thing that I had taken that emptiness to be something wrong. So I'd taken that as, I have to fill that hole. I have to fill it. So how am I going to fill it? Well, I'm going to fill it with anything I can find. So I just went from one thing to another, each being unfulfilling, each never filling the hole, each new project of self-development and self-enhancement, not making myself feel any more solid. And so when I heard this message, it was like a moth to a flame. So I was irrevocably drawn to it. I couldn't even turn away from it. And I didn't. From the moment I heard it, the flame, it was like I got close to the flame became more and more all-encompassing. Then you could say, this is just a lovely little story. It's not really true. But you could say that you get close enough and the flame burns everything. And there's nothing left.
But that's freedom.
That's just a story. But for most people, most human beings, they will just dismiss this as nonsense. They won't even see it. Oh yeah, because their sense of self is secure, is relatively secure and solid. It feels real, very real. And so they'll dismiss this as, well, of course there's a me. Well, not even, what a load of bollocks. Just dismiss it. I think that's the majority. And then for a few who have a very vulnerable sense of self, the threat of that little vulnerable sense of self being, this message says, oh yeah, there's not even that little vulnerable sense of self. The vulnerable little sense of self can feel incredibly threatened by that. So the little identity, even though I've got a negative identity, say, I still want to keep that. This message can be very threatening to that, because it's saying, no, even that has to go. This isn't about losing all positive, it's losing all identity. All of it, everything has to go. It leaves you with nothing.
But that's very damaging for some people.
No, I don't think it's damaging at all. But does it feel damaging to me, who feels the threat of my identity? Of course. But there is actually nothing being damaged. Does it feel damaging? Yes. But the whole message is there is no me. But me will be threatened, or can feel threatened. Most dismiss this as nonsense, though. I mean, I can quite happily mention this to most people, and they won't even, it will just pass straight through. It won't touch anything. It won't mean anything. So I'm no threat. But of course, to those people who have some self-inquiring, they've done some introspection, they feel vulnerable, this can be, wow, I'm not even that little vulnerable me. And that little vulnerable me will feel terrified. Yeah. Me will never want to die. Me is the survival mechanism. Me is just about my survival. That's what I do. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing everywhere. Me doing its best to survive by hoarding toilet rolls, as if that would help. I mean, it is comical, isn't it? So what has most British people done in order to save themselves from a pandemic? Bulk bought toilet rolls. If that's not funny, I don't know what is. It's not going to save them, is it? But that's what they've done because of comfort. I was talking about it this morning because there's something comforting about wiping your bum, isn't it, with a soft toilet roll? It's a comfort. So me will take that. Yeah, I'll take that. And tissues. There's no tissues in any shops. I like a nice soft tissue when I've got a sniffle. I feel a little bit more secure. Because this is a huge threat to everyone's security. But if it's really seen as obvious that there is no security, life is completely insecure. Then of course that's the freedom. And in the total insecurity, there's the security. It's the only way. Because if you're trying to keep yourself safe in a this that is so obviously completely random, anything can happen at any moment. Everything is possible. Anything is possible. There is no security. And I think deep down, the majority of human beings know this as well. So me is the cover, is like the shield, the veil, to not see this obviousness. And the obviousness is that there's no safety here.
I think that's pretty obvious with what's going on.
And now it's become more obvious to more human beings in the present situation. That's what we're seeing. And so we're seeing how human beings with an individual sense of self react to that. It's not pretty, generally. You threaten me and I'll do everything to protect myself. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, that's just how it is. The beautiful thing about non-duality as a message is it's not saying anything's wrong or right. I mean, that's why it's talked about as freedom or liberation. It's freedom from right and wrong. There's no longer right and wrong other than each human being bringing their ideas, their beliefs of right and wrong to what is. There is only what is, and then each human being brings right and wrong to that and tells a story. That's it. And there's great freedom in that. Complete freedom. This is completely free without your ideas of right and wrong or my ideas of right and wrong. My judgments are what confines this. Yeah.
Another common criticism I've come across about this subject is that a lot of non-dual speakers sound very much like 20 persons to the degree that even though using words like apparently or words like suggestion, and I think it's common to interpret that as brainwashing for some
right.
viewers. So what is your viewpoint?
Well, yeah, that's been said of me, that and of course I do have a lot of Tony's language because I've been to see Tony a lot. And so, and Tony's so clear about it. Of course, if there's clarity in the language, why would you try and make it less clear by using different language? The brainwashing, and actually I take it, if someone says I sound like Tony Parsons, I take it as a compliment, because that's good. If I sound like him, then it's obviously, I'm not far off making it clear. That's how it would be. In terms of brainwashing, there's no it sounds quite funny, because of course this doesn't even have any attempt to tell you anything other than you don't exist as a individual, me. That's all it says. There's only two parts to this message. There's just this, and it's not yours. There's no you. That's it. So how that can be called brainwashing, I'm not really sure. Brainwashing would need quite a lot of, detail in the brainwashing. That really isn't. And the apparently thing. Now I'm conscious. I'm conscious that I say apparently a lot less than Tony would, or Andreas would, or other speakers would, or Jim Newman would, or because I say seemingly instead. There you go. I just thought of another word. Makes not a shit of difference whether you say apparently or seemingly, or well, they're the only two I've come up with really. So I say seemingly, so it sounds less like Tony Parsons. Doesn't matter.
I'm just pointing to how things get interpreted.
Is it clear why apparently or seemingly is used?
For me it is, but
shall I just say why that's used all the time? It's because what I said at the beginning about, so this is happening but it's not really happening. So it seems to be, so what's happening? Well, everything that seems to be happening. Is it really happening? No. But it's all that is happening. There isn't anything else. So it appears to be happening. So there aren't many words we can use, because the trouble with non-duality is, of course, it's talking paradoxically about everything. All opposites just fall into each other and disappear in this. This is singular, it's not two. So two is all the opposites. So good falls into bad. This falls into that. That falls into this. You fall into me. There falls into here. And that's traditionally it's called Advaita, and for me it's really simple. Advaita makes this sound very complicated. And the thing that I don't like about traditional Advaita is how complicated it sounds. Whereas this is, the reason most people won't go near this is because it's too obvious, it's too simple. So all the time I'm speaking, when I'm speaking, I'm always trying to simplify it as much as possible. But you can't get it because it's got. There's nobody getting anything. There's no need to get anything. How wonderful is that? I mean, you say how devastating this can be for some people. But usually that's because one of the most devastating things is there's nothing else for you to aim for. There's no future in which you're going to get what you want.
But that's depressing.
That's terrible, but that's the huge liberation. That's the you could say that's the good news, that's the amazing news. But of course for me, who's always lived in hopes and dreams, it's devastating, or can be.
Because it gets interpreted as depressing.
Yes, and I've had it called nihilistic, because when I've said things, people says, well, that's nihilistic, it's nihilism, you know, hopelessness. And I go, yeah, but the weirdest thing is if this becomes obvious, that there's just this, the absence of hope, which is what we're talking about, isn't at all hopeless. Hopeless is a feeling of despair. Now that's for me, but if without me and my hopes of the future, there's just this beautiful happening that isn't happening. That's the liberation. The liberation is from hope, is from dreams, is from my future when everything will be just as I want it to be. Well, of course, what are you missing in that? You're missing the only thing that is. You're living, most human beings are not living, you could say, in the only place, the only placeless place that there is, which is here. They're not living here, they're living in a future. Or, if they're full of guilt and remorse and regret, they're living in the past. Neither of which exists other than memory, is the only thing we have of the past, and my hopes and dreams and imagination of the future, what it would be. That's the desperation that you talk about, that people with their identity. If your identity is very much about, I haven't achieved in my life what I wanted to achieve. I wanted my life to be this, this and this, and it's not been that. You're going to find this message very threatening, because it's saying, well, there is no future, because that's the essence of this message. There isn't a future when all your hopes and dreams will come true. And for most individuals, that's at least threatening, and could feel devastating. Yeah. But I have no qualms about saying it, because it is just as it is. I'm not, because this message isn't saying don't have hopes and dreams. This message is saying, while you are feeling that you are an individual with free will and choice and volition, you will dream of a future. You will have time. You've got a life. You've got a past. You're here now, and you've got a future to come. You will dream and hope. That's inevitable. That's what this is saying. This isn't saying that's wrong. It's saying that's inevitable as me. So in terms of the brainwashing thing, I don't get any of that. All it is descriptive. This isn't making any suggestions. This isn't making any recommendations. It's just trying to describe how it is to be a human being. That's how I see it. So there's not in the faintest, I don't get any sense of that it could be seen as brainwashing. I understand that most people won't like it, of course. That's different.
Because it's seen as like now the idea of no me is something to strive for. It's
okay, I want to say something about that. There isn't no me. There isn't no me that replaces the me. So, okay, so Tony Parsons and Jim Newman and Andreas Muller, they're all no me's. No, of course they're not. They haven't replaced, okay, so what they've done by some wonderful mystery is their me has fallen away, and now they are no me's. And unfortunately, as a me, that's all you can get your head round, really. Because, of course, there must be something. So there's not me. So what replaces me? Well, no me. No. There's nothing replacing you because you aren't. Nothing is lost. Nothing is gained. There is an apparent loss. Oh shit, I've said the A word. Apparently, me is lost, but in the apparent seeming loss of me, no one's lost. Nothing's lost. There's not even a noticing that there's no me. That would take me to notice that. And there's certainly nothing to notice no me. But the know me thing is quite funny. So there's equally no me as there is no me.
I think it gets interpreted as if like that is now a new thing to achieve.
I tried really hard. Tim worked really hard to get rid of himself, to be liberated, to be one with everything. I didn't really, it wasn't enlightenment for me because I didn't go down the spiritual, so I never used that word much, but in my seeking, I was looking for becoming no me. But of course, I mean, it is funny because there's nothing in non-duality that ever suggests that you would become no me. The whole suggestion is that there's no becoming anything. This doesn't become anything because, of course, becoming is all in time. There's is, but not will be, not becoming. So you couldn't become no me. And if you ask, so what am I now? I just simply haven't got an answer for that. The best answer I've got is empty. Empty is the best I've got. But I never say no me. Unless I'm describing, I wouldn't, that's not how I would describe, so what's here? Empty, really. But then you probably wouldn't like it. I'd describe you in the same way. Empty too. You don't see me's anymore. Because I only infer your sense of self. You-ness is only inferred from my me-ness. Without that appearing here, there's no sense of it. That's what I tried to express when I said you fall into me. And that sounds really spiritual, but it's not, it's very ordinary. It's just very equal. Everything is just level. It lays flat, everything.
I wanted to ask you, what if this idea of liberation it doesn't exist and it's just an imaginary idea made up by the mind?
Yeah. I haven't got an answer to that. If it's imaginary, there's no sense that anything that I'm saying is imagined. It's simply an attempt to describe what's not imagined. Now, you can't say what that is, so reality if you want. So you're saying, what if it's completely unreal?
Yeah.
this idea of liberation. Well, I would say the idea of liberation is completely unreal. It's an idea that's imagined. What this is an attempt, a futile attempt, but an attempt, is to describe what is real. Now, that's not imagined, but it includes all imagination as well. There's no exclusion. So what this is attempting to do is describe everything. Now, that's obviously not possible. And when I say everything, I mean everything that has been, everything that is, and everything that will be. Because this is everything. There is no past and future, but there is no now either. But you could equally say, because it's paradoxical, that they're all existent as this. Because where is the past? If this becomes obvious, it's here. It can't be anywhere else. It's not to come. There isn't a to come. Where's the future. Where's the past? It's here. It's in memory. It's in story. As is the future. They're just stories, but they're all this. And this is just an attempt to describe that. Now, if you tell me about, is the sense of self, or the absence, the seeming absence of a sense of me, is that imagined? I can't answer that really. It's very obvious that if you ask me to look for a sense of self, there's nothing to find, there's nothing to see. But it would be the same with trying to find you. So if you tried to find me now, so if I ask you, you have a sense of self, you have a sense of sumanus.
I think so.
But could you find, so you have a sense of me, you. Would you say you would be able to see my sense of self? No. Well, it's like that. So if there's looking for what this is, just a blank, empty, nothing. Just the same as I look at you. And amazingly, that emptiness is beautiful. It's incredibly beautiful. Sounds like it's nihilistic, sounds like it's dreadful, sounds like it's empty of love. But the most amazing thing about this whole message is the emptiness is full of love. That makes no sense. I've probably left that out of the interview because that's the most nonsensical. That's the most paradoxical. So all of this is completely empty and full of love. Doesn't make any sense. Now, you could say the love is imagination. You could say the emptiness is imagination. It makes no difference. It's just an attempted description. But it's very clear there's no me. Nothing to find.
Thank you so much for sharing this today. I feel like it's, especially with what's happening right now, I think I really appreciate this, your kindness.
Oh, thanks for asking me. It's been lovely. Thanks, Suma.
It means a lot to me that I got to see a positive and a loving side in middle of all that is going on in the news.
Yeah.
So it's
There will be a lot of seemingly great compassion and love and kindness and support and sharing and all the things that we find most natural about being human. So there's be immense, what we would call good, come out of this. There's no doubt about that.
And this interview was seemingly an expression of compassion.
You could say that, yeah. It's been lovely.
So I thank you deeply.
Oh, thank you. No, thanks, Juma. You're welcome.
And thank you everyone
Thank
for
you.
watching this.